Hello, dear listeners. Welcome to Podcast Vault, your ultimate destination for the best audiobooks and insightful podcasts. We're working hard to bring you the most engaging and high-quality book audio experiences, so you can enjoy knowledge and stories anytime, anywhere. If you love what we do, please support us by subscribing to the channel. Don't forget to like, comment, and share with your friends. It really helps us grow. Stay tuned for amazing content. And thank you for being a part of our podcast family. Happy listening.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling something right at the heart of our experience, understanding our emotions.
Yeah, really fundamental stuff.
You sent us Master Your Emotions, and honestly, it's a really insightful guide. It's kind of a practical roadmap, you could say, for navigating the often choppy waters of how we feel. So think of this deep dive as maybe your express route to grasping the emotional landscape and picking up some seriously useful skills.
Exactly. Master Your Emotions kicks off with a really powerful idea.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to, wrestle our emotions into submission, which, let's face it, rarely works.
Right, doesn't work.
We can learn to relate to them with more wisdom. The book suggests that by becoming more aware, understanding their role, and practicing consistently, we can actually feel more empowered by our emotions, not trapped by them.
So our mission here, our goal, is really to distill the essential insights and the most actionable strategies from this book. We want to give you, the listener, a clear, quick, but still pretty in-depth understanding of how to engage with your emotions more skillfully.
Aiming for those aha moments.
Yeah, those light bulb moments without feeling totally overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Okay, let's unpack this then, and maybe start with a fundamental question. What exactly are emotions, according to this source?
Well, the book really emphasizes that emotions are temporary energy states. They pop up in response to our thoughts, our beliefs, the way we interpret what's happening around us.
Okay, temporary.
Right. It's helpful to see them as visitors passing through rather than defining who you are permanently. That feeling of I am anxious can feel very different from acknowledging I am experiencing anxiety.
That's a subtle but big shift.
It is, and the book really draws attention to that distinction. The core insight here is emotions are temporary, they come and they go. Don't mistake a passing storm for the permanent climate, essentially.
That really shifts things, doesn't it? And I think one of the most valuable perspectives the book offers is challenging this habit we have of labeling emotions as good or bad.
Oh, absolutely. That's huge. We often tag anger or sadness as negative, right? But Master Your Emotions makes the case that actually every emotion has a role to play.
A function.
Precisely. Think about it. Anger can be a strong indicator that a line has been crossed or maybe a need isn't being met. Sadness can actually deepen our ability to connect with others, feel empathy.
Interesting.
Even fear, has a vital protective function when there's real danger. The book points out that the real difficulty, the suffering, it arises not usually from the emotion itself, but from our relationship with it.
How we react to it.
Exactly. Struggling against it, getting stuck in loops of worry, reacting without thinking, or even, judging ourselves for feeling a certain way. That's where we often create our own suffering. So the key takeaway, stop labeling emotions. They all serve a purpose. Your struggle comes from how you handle them, not the feeling itself.
Right. It's like trying to swim upstream instead of learning the currents.
Yeah.
An essential idea that really stuck with me from the reading is this connection between our thoughts and our emotions. It's not just the external event, but how we interpret that event.
Yes. And what's fascinating here is how different our reactions can be to the exact same thing, depending on our thoughts.
Yeah, give us an example.
Okay, so imagine two people get the same feedback at work. Let's say it's constructive criticism. One person might immediately think, oh no, they think I'm incompetent, and feel this surge of anger and defensiveness.
Okay, defensive.
The other person might think, okay, this is specific feedback, it's a chance to improve, and maybe feel motivated or at least neutral about it. Same feedback, totally different emotional responses.
Driven by their interpretations.
Exactly, driven by their interpretations. So the core insight here is your thoughts, not the events themselves, are often the real emotional triggers. Change your thinking, you can change your feelings.
That's empowering.
It really is. This understanding puts you in a much more powerful position because you can start to examine and maybe shift your internal thoughts and beliefs, which in turn gives you more influence over how you feel.
It really does put the ball back in our court.
Yeah.
And then the book dives into the physical side of emotions, which I found really eye-opening. It talks about the emotional body.
Yes, the book emphasizes that emotions aren't just these abstract mental things. They have a very real physical component. You might notice anger as, say, tightness in your jaw or shoulders.
I feel that sometimes.
Right. Or fear as that churning in your stomach. Or maybe anxiety as rapid breathing. This mind-body connection is incredibly important. And the book suggests that unacknowledged emotions can actually contribute to physical health issues over time.
Wow.
But the good news is this link works both ways. By paying attention to our physical sensations, we can often pick up on emotions as they begin to surface, sometimes even before we consciously identify them.
Like an early warning system.
Kind of, yeah. And crucially, practices that work with the body, like focused breathing or relaxation techniques, they can directly impact our emotional state. So, the takeaway: your body gives you clues about your emotions. Pay attention to those physical signals.
Okay, so we're getting a handle on what emotions are, this thought-emotion link, the physical dimension. Now, how do we actually navigate these feelings when they arise? The book lays out what it calls the emotional processing cycle, right?
That's right. And this is a really fundamental framework for engaging with our emotions in a healthy way. It has 5 stages, basically.
Okay, 5 stages.
First is awareness. Simply noticing that you're feeling something. Just recognizing it.
Step 1, notice.
Second, acceptance. Allowing that feeling to be present without trying to fight it or push it away immediately, just letting it be there for a moment.
Okay, accept it's there.
Third, investigation. Exploring the emotion with curiosity, asking yourself maybe, what does this feel like? Where in my body do I sense it? What thoughts might be connected to it? But doing this without judgment.
Getting curious.
Exactly. Fourth is expression. Finding healthy and appropriate ways to release that emotional energy. Could be talking, writing, moving.
Healthy ways, important qualifier.
Very important. And finally, 5th is integration. Learning from the experience and allowing the emotion to naturally kind of fade and pass.
So, can you give an example of that cycle?
Sure. Think of it like this. You feel a pang of disappointment, say, after a presentation didn't go as planned. That's awareness. You let yourself feel that disappointment for a moment instead of immediately brushing it off, acceptance. Then you ask yourself, okay, why did this disappoint me? What specifically felt off? Investigation. Maybe later you talk to a trusted colleague about it, get some perspective, expression, and then over time the feeling eases, you've learned something, and you move on. Integration.
That makes sense. But what if you skip a step? Like if you just immediately distract yourself?
Well, that's where the disruption happens, according to the book. The core insight is emotions need to move through you. Each stage of this processing cycle is important for healthy emotional flow.
And the book stresses that if this cycle gets interrupted at any point, that's where difficulties can arise.
Exactly. If we consistently miss the early signs of an emotion, maybe we're just not paying attention, lack of awareness. Or if we immediately resist a feeling as soon as it appears, like, I shouldn't feel this way, lack of acceptance. Or if we avoid exploring what's underneath it, well, that emotional energy can get stuck.
Stuck, huh?
Yeah. And this can lead to those automatic reactions that aren't always helpful, And those unprocessed emotions, they can pop up later, sometimes much more intensely. It's like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. Eventually, it's going to shoot back up, maybe unexpectedly.
Good analogy.
So the key takeaway here is disrupting the emotional processing cycle can lead to stuck emotions and potentially bigger reactions down the line.
Okay, so that's the general cycle. But what about those really powerful, sometimes difficult emotions? The book offers specific guidance for dealing with things like anger, fear, and sadness. Let's start with anger.
Right. Anger, it's a tricky one. The book advises steering clear of 2 common traps. One is suppressing it, just bottling it up, which can breed resentment over time.
Yeah, that does sound good.
And the other trap is just exploding with it, which often damages relationships and doesn't really address the root cause anyway.
Destructive venting.
Exactly. Instead, it suggests seeing anger as valuable information, like what need isn't being met here, what boundary has been crossed. It encourages us to channel that energy constructively, maybe express our needs and boundaries clearly and respectfully when it's appropriate. And also, using physical activity can be a really healthy way way to release the physiological buildup that often comes with anger.
So listening to the anger.
Listening to it, yeah, the core insight. Anger isn't inherently bad. It often signals unmet needs or crossed boundaries. Learn to listen to it and express it constructively.
That makes sense. It's about harnessing that energy rather than being completely controlled by it. Okay, what about fear? That's another one that can really hold people back.
Yeah, fear and anxiety. With fear, the book highlights the crucial difference between useful fear, the kind that alerts us to genuine danger, and unnecessary anxiety, which is often based on imagined or, frankly, unlikely threats.
The what-ifs.
All the what-ifs. It introduces a technique called fear setting, which is interesting. It involves really thinking through your worst-case scenarios, examining them logically. What's the actual worst that could happen? How likely is it? How would you cope? This often helps gain perspective and realize they aren't as terrible or as probable as you initially thought.
Facing the fear in a structured way.
Exactly. It also emphasizes taking small, manageable steps towards things you fear to build confidence bit by bit. And practicing self-soothing techniques, deep breathing, grounding exercises to calm your nervous system when fear arises. It's about moving through the fear, not letting it paralyze you. The key takeaway: distinguish between real danger and anxiety. Facing your fears in small steps builds confidence.
And then there's sadness, which can sometimes feel so overwhelming, maybe isolating.
Mm-hmm. The book reframes sadness not as something to be avoided at all costs, but as a natural and healthy response to loss, disappointment, or grief. It encourages us to actually honor it.
Honor sadness. How?
By creating safe spaces where we can fully feel and express it. That might be through crying, journaling, talking to someone we trust, rather than trying to immediately distract ourselves or push it away. It also emphasizes the importance of seeking connection with others when we're sad, rather than isolating ourselves, which is often the instinct.
Reach out, don't withdraw.
Right. And eventually finding meaning in our experiences of loss, which can be a part of healing. It's about allowing yourself to grieve, to feel the sadness, and eventually integrate that experience into your life. The core insight: sadness is a natural response to loss. Allow yourself to feel it and seek connection.
This is all incredibly practical advice.
Yeah.
So moving beyond dealing with individual emotions as they pop up, the book also talks about developing overall emotional intelligence. What are the key pieces of that puzzle?
Yeah, emotional intelligence, as the book describes it, really starts with self-awareness. That's the foundational piece. It's the ability to accurately recognize what you're feeling and ideally understand why you're feeling it.
Knowing yourself emotionally.
Exactly. The book suggests some practical ways to build this. Doing regular emotional check-ins throughout your day, just pausing and asking, what am I feeling right now? Journaling can be great for tracking your emotional patterns and triggers. Practicing mindfulness meditation helps you observe your emotions without getting swept away by them. And even doing body scans, like we mentioned, to notice where emotions tend to show up physically for you.
Why is that self-awareness so crucial?
Well, strong self-awareness is so important because it allows you to catch emotions early, maybe before they escalate. And it helps you really pinpoint what you're feeling instead of just experiencing this vague sense of unease or distress. You can say, this is frustration, not just I feel bad. The key takeaway: know thyself emotionally. Regular self-reflection builds self-awareness.
Okay, so knowing what you're feeling is the first piece. What comes next in building that emotional intelligence?
That leads naturally into emotional regulation. This is about influencing which emotions you have, when you have them, and importantly, how you experience and express them. It's not about suppression, but influence.
Okay, influence, not control. What are some strategies?
The book outlines several key strategies. One is cognitive reframing. That's changing how you interpret a situation to shift your emotional response, like we talked about with the work feedback example.
Changing the story you tell yourself.
Precisely. Another is attention direction, consciously focusing on aspects of a situation that support a more balanced emotional state, rather than dwelling on the negative. Response modulation is about choosing how you behave in response to an emotion, making sure your actions align with your values, even if you feel angry or upset.
Choosing your response.
Yes. Situation selection involves proactively choosing environments and activities that are more likely to support your emotional well-being, maybe avoiding known triggers when possible. And finally, physiological regulation uses techniques like breathing exercises or physical activity to influence your emotional state from a body-based level. It's a very active process. The core insight: you can learn to influence your emotional experience through various strategies.
It sounds like a very active way of working with ourselves, definitely.
Yeah.
And then there's how we express these emotions to the outside world. The book talks about Finding a healthy balance there too, right?
Mm.
Between bottling up and exploding.
Exactly. Healthy emotional expression lies somewhere in that middle path. You don't want to bottle everything up that can be harmful to you and your relationships, but you also don't want to just react impulsively without thinking about the impact on others.
Finding the middle ground.
Finding the middle ground. The book discusses communicating your feelings assertively, using I statements focusing on your experience. I feel frustrated when.
Yeah.
Rather than blaming, you always make me. Choosing appropriate times and places for emotionally charged conversations is also key.
Timing matters.
Hugely. Finding creative outlets like art, music, writing, movement can be a great way to release emotional energy constructively, and also developing a richer emotional vocabulary helps. Being able to articulate your feelings more precisely than just saying, I'm angry or I'm sad, can be really beneficial for both you and the people you're communicating with. The key takeaway. Express your emotions constructively, assertively, at the right time, and in a healthy way.
And it's not just about our own internal world, is it? Emotional intelligence also involves understanding and connecting with the emotions of others. That's where empathy and social intelligence come in.
Precisely. The book explains that as you become more attuned to your own emotional landscape, you naturally develop a better capacity to recognize and understand the emotions of others. It's like learning the language of emotion within yourself helps you understand it in others.
Makes sense.
It highlights ways to build empathy, such as actively listening, really listening, not just to the words people say, but also paying attention to their tone, their body language, the emotions that might be underlying their words. Recognizing emotional contagion, how feelings can kind of spread from person to person, both positive and negative, is also important.
Oh yeah, you can catch someone else's mood.
Absolutely. And setting healthy boundaries is crucial here too, so you don't become overwhelmed by other people's emotions. Using your understanding of emotions to navigate conflicts more effectively is another aspect. And ultimately, fostering emotional safety and trust in your relationships relies heavily on this, the core insight. Understanding your own emotions helps you understand others. Empathy builds stronger connections.
Okay, so we've covered understanding emotions, processing them, building overall emotional intelligence. Now, how do we make this a part of our everyday lives? The book outlines some key daily practices for what it calls emotional mastery. Mindfulness seems like a big one.
Yes, mindfulness is presented as really a foundational practice throughout the book. It's about cultivating that non-judgmental awareness of the present moment, what's happening right now, inside and outside.
How does that help with emotions specifically?
Well, it allows you to observe your emotions as they arise without immediately getting caught up in them or reacting impulsively. You notice the anger or the sadness, but you don't have to be the anger or sadness. It helps you see that emotions are temporary, like passing clouds in the sky. Regular mindfulness practice can also lessen that tendency to ruminate on the past or worry constantly about the future. And crucially, it creates a little bit of space, a pause between a trigger and your reaction, giving you more choice in how you respond.
That space sounds incredibly valuable.
It is. The key takeaway. Mindfulness, paying attention to the present without judgment, is key to observing emotions without reacting automatically.
And it's not just about our inner awareness, right? The book also emphasizes cognitive practices working with our thoughts, because thoughts influence feelings so much.
Absolutely. Since our thoughts have such a powerful impact on our emotions, actively working with our thinking patterns is essential. The book suggests practices like identifying common cognitive distortions, those negative or irrational thought patterns we all fall into sometimes, like catastrophizing or all or nothing thinking.
Recognizing the unhelpful thoughts.
Yes. And then developing more balanced and realistic ways of interpreting events, consciously practicing thought substitution, noticing an unhelpful negative thought, and intentionally replacing it with a more positive, neutral, or realistic one. And also cultivating a more self-compassionate inner voice. Treating yourself with the same kindness and understanding you would offer a friend who is struggling. That internal dialogue matters a lot, the core insight. Your thoughts drive your emotions. Challenge negative thinking patterns.
It all seems so interconnected, doesn't it? The thoughts, the feelings, the body. And the book also underscores the importance of our physical well-being for emotional balance.
Definitely. That mind-body connection is a constant theme. The book lists several beneficial physical practices. Regular exercise is a big one. It helps release stress hormones, boosts mood-regulating chemicals in the brain.
Moving your body changes your mind.
It really does. Progressive muscle relaxation is another technique mentioned to release physical tension that often accompanies emotional distress. Various breathing techniques are highlighted. Simple, deep breathing can activate the body's relaxation response and promote calm very quickly. And of course, ensuring you're getting enough sleep and proper nutrition. These are fundamental pillars for overall emotional resilience. The key takeaway: physical health and emotional health are deeply intertwined. Take care of your body.
And finally, there's the environment. Our surroundings play a significant role, too.
They really do. Our environment can significantly impact how we feel. The book suggests being mindful of our surroundings and making conscious choices where we can. This could involve creating supportive and nurturing spaces in your home or workspace places that feel calming or energizing.
Decluttering, maybe?
Could be.
Yeah.
It also suggests limiting your exposure to people, media, or situations that consistently trigger negative emotions if possible. Establishing routines that promote emotional well-being, like a calming morning routine or an evening wind-down practice. And intentionally spending time in nature, which research shows has a really calming and restorative effect on our emotional state. The key takeaway: your environment influences your emotions. Create supportive surroundings.
The book also includes some really illustrative real-life examples. Sarah's dealing with a job rejection, Michael navigating family conflict, Elena managing chronic stress, Robert processing grief. We don't have time to go super deep into each story now, but what were some of the key learnings that really stood out from those examples? They seem to pull everything together.
Yeah, they really do. Across all those stories, a few key themes definitely emerge. One is the power of just acknowledging and allowing difficult emotions without judging yourself for having them. For Sarah, even facing rejection, she learned to ask, okay, what can I learn from this? Instead of just spiraling into negativity.
Shifting perspective.
For Michael, in that family conflict scenario, his ability to pause, name his own emotions, okay, I'm feeling defensive right now, and then question his initial interpretation of the situation. That was crucial in finding a more constructive way forward rather than just escalating the argument.
The pause is powerful.
Very. Elena's journey with chronic stress really highlights the importance of tracking her emotional patterns over time, implementing practices like mindfulness, actively challenging her negative thought cycles, and crucially, creating healthier boundaries at work and home. And Robert's experience with grief, it underscores the importance of accepting sadness as a natural process, finding healthy ways to express it, connecting with others, and eventually finding ways to carry the memory of his loss forward while still engaging meaningfully with life.
So the overarching learning seems to be that even in really challenging situations, applying these principles allows for more skillful, more adaptive responses rather than just being swept away by the emotion.
Exactly. It's about moving from being purely reactive to responding with more intention and wisdom.
Right. And the book wraps up with 20 key takeaways, along with practical implementation strategies. Let's maybe just touch on a few that we thought were particularly insightful and actionable for you listening. One that really resonated with me is the idea that emotions are messengers, not masters.
Oh, that's such a fundamental shift in perspective, isn't it? Emotions give us valuable information about what's important to us, what we need, what's happening in our inner and outer worlds. But they don't have to dictate our behavior.
So how do you practice that?
A practical way to put this into practice is simply to pause whenever you feel a strong emotion arise. Before you react, just pause and ask yourself, okay, what is this feeling trying to tell me? This creates that little bit of space for a thoughtful response rather than an automatic knee-jerk reaction.
Simple but powerful. Another really impactful takeaway is the statement, you are not your emotions.
Yes. This helps create some crucial psychological distance, especially from intense or difficult feelings. Remember, emotions are temporary states. They are experiences you are having, not the sum total of who you are.
How can you reinforce that?
A simple technique to implement this is to consciously practice changing your language. Instead of saying, I am angry or I am sad, try saying to yourself, I am experiencing anger or I am noticing sadness. This subtle shift in language can make a surprisingly big difference in how overwhelming the emotion feels. It reinforces that it's passing through.
I like that. I am experiencing, and this connects so well with the idea we discussed earlier, thoughts shape your emotions.
Absolutely. Your interpretation of events is such a powerful driver of your emotional experience. So when you find yourself feeling intensely emotional, take a moment to identify the specific thoughts that are fueling that feeling. What story are you telling yourself right now?
And then challenge it.
And then challenge those thoughts. Ask yourself, is this thought 100% true? Are there other possible interpretations of the situation? Are there facts that contradict this thought? Often, just examining your thoughts with a bit of critical distance can lead to a significant shift in your emotional emotional response.
It brings that cognitive piece right into the moment. And finally, I've found the takeaway that the body holds emotional information to be a really important reminder, bringing it back to the physical.
Yeah, our physical sensations can often be early indicators of an emotional shift, sometimes even before we're fully consciously aware of the emotion itself, that gut feeling, the tension in your shoulders.
So how do you use that information?
A practical way to tune into this is to conduct regular, brief body scans. Just take a few moments throughout the day, maybe when you're waiting in line, or between tasks to bring your attention inward. Scan through your body from head to toe, or focus on a specific area, and just notice any sensations. Tension, tightness, warmth, coolness, tingling, whatever it is. No need to judge it, just notice. Over time, you'll start to recognize patterns and connect these physical sensations with specific emotional states, allowing you to become more aware of your emotions as they begin to arise.
This has been such an insightful deep dive into master your emotions. It really does reframe how we think about our feelings, doesn't it? Moving away from this idea of needing to control or suppress them towards understanding and skillfully navigating them.
Exactly. I think the core message really is that emotional mastery isn't about suppressing difficult feelings or trying to force yourself to be happy all the time. That's not realistic or helpful. It's about developing the awareness, the tools, and the daily practices that allow you to work effectively and compassionately with your entire range of emotions, the comfortable ones and the uncomfortable ones.
It's a skill set.
It really is. And by consistently applying these principles, the book suggests you can truly transform your relationship with your inner world, moving from a place of maybe struggle or reactivity to one of greater understanding, resilience, and even empowerment.
So, for you listening, we really encourage you to think about which of these insights or practices resonates most with you right now. Maybe just pick one. What small, practical step could you take, maybe even today or this week, to deepen your understanding of your own emotional landscape based on what we've discussed?
A small step.
Remember, building emotional intelligence, this kind of emotional mastery, it's a continuous journey. It's a lifelong process of learning and growth. And we hope this exploration of master your emotions has provided you with some valuable tools and perspectives to take that next step on your own journey.